Hello and welcome to the channel. I am Perplexed Polymath and today I'm going to be uploading a recap of the last video that I produced. It was basically an introduction of my habit tracking. So in the previous video I identified 4 different habits that I wanted to follow for 4 weeks. These were stretching, writing, tidying and cleansing and moisturising my face. So the big one was the cleansing and moisturising of my face. Out of the 4, it's the only one which I was looking to do long time to track for 12 weeks rather than the 4 weeks. I will admit, after the 4 weeks, the feeling like I needed to track what I was doing sort of faded quite a lot. I realised that towards, for the first couple of weeks, if I wasn't tracking it, I probably wouldn't have done it, or I wouldn't have done it anywhere near as much. Having 4 different things that I was tracking, it became a habit in itself to remember to write down what I had been doing. And so I haven't really been following it all that much, as in checking off a calendar like I had been for the previous ones. Like I had been for the previous 4 weeks or so. So with this one, I felt like I've made a lot of progress. Like, I've never really looked after my skin in the past. I actually had to look up how to look after my skin, so the whole cleanse, tone, moisturize twice a day thing, I had no clue. I was one of those people, I would probably not even wash my face once a day, let alone twice a day. I'd probably at most wash my face when I was in the shower every other day. But yeah, I ended up having. When I first started, I had some issues where I thought that it wasn't working. I hadn't actually started using the toner as well, and so I was getting this build up of the moisturizer in my skin, and it ended up making me look very shiny, and I was having problems with being greasy. I was having more of a breakout than I expected. Obviously, when you start a new skin regimen, before it gets better, it does get worse a lot of the time, because it'll be pulling out all of the bad stuff from your skin. It'll be getting rid of all the dirt and things that's worked its way deep into your skin. And so obviously you are going to have a breakout where your body gets rid of that. That's fine, but this was worse. And then as soon as I started using the toner as well, I had significantly better results. As you can probably tell, I've been having a breakout recently, but that's more because I have been neglecting it over the last week or so. My health did get a lot worse towards the end of the month, but I'm going to discuss that in a little bit. For now, I'm just going to go through the 4 different habits and what I was doing and what I noticed at that point. So, second is the stretching habit. So this habit I embarked on in order to help me maintain my basic flexibility and my mobility and get into the habit of monitoring my physical condition more often, sort of touching base with myself in a way. As a sufferer of chronic pain in pretty much all of my joints because of hypermobility, I have never really kept track of what's going on in my body. It's something that I was working with my therapist, was re-establishing the communication. Where I was hit by a car and then my hypermobility got a lot worse, I never really learnt to keep track of everything. A lot of the time I would just ignore it. Especially during my undergrad and my masters, I had so much going on, and I basically felt like I didn't deserve to give myself time off because of other people were able to do it, and if I wasn't able to do it, then I wasn't good enough, was the sort of mentality I had. Now I know that I am good enough, but it may just take me a little bit more time, or I need to be more compassionate and that my acknowledge that my boundaries are maybe sooner than other people, but by knowing that, I can adapt to that a lot better, and that's what I'm trying to work on at the moment. So for my physical health to improve, I know I need to reach that point, and to actually say, hold up, I need a break. I need to hit pause and sort out my physical health, and that's something I'm working on at the moment. Okay, the third habit I was trying to build is one which is working towards being a better adult in a way. So I am by no means a domestic goddess. I am lacking in most home based skills except for things like cooking. That's probably the only place where I've actually put in time and effort to develop my skills to do with being house proud and things. I really fail. I'm not good at dishes. I forget about my washing, and I don't clean things as much as I should. Well, as often as I should. When I do it thoroughly. But yeah, it's something that I'm working on, and will probably have to keep working on and keep working on just to develop one habit after another and sort of build everything into the routine. Where I had so much to do during my undergrad and masters, I didn't really have that much room for developing these skills and sort of growing up in a way. So I'm just kind of aiming to do that eventually. And now is the point where I have the extra time now that I'm working, but only 25, 30 hours a week. I can then do other things alongside it. Whereas if I think back during my masters, I think I was commuting 4 hours a day, 4 days a week to and from another city rather than the one I live in just to go to university. And then I was also doing 6 hours of university work a day, and that makes for 50 hours, 40, 50 hours nearly of that. Plus, I was working 15, 20 hours a week in a part time job as well. And that's hard enough, let alone dealing with like the depression and anxiety that I was laboring under, and having all of my physical issues get worse and worse as my mental health degraded, so did my health, and it was this vicious cycle. It's something that I've hit pause and sort of stepped back, and I was only working for a while just to get by, and I've worked through things with a therapist and I'm getting back on track. But this is still one place where I'm really struggling, is the adulting thing of housework and making sure that everything is clean and tidy as much as I can. And it's going to take a while, but I'm working on it. Like, something that I want to avoid is that daunting feeling of, oh god, I've left this way too long, and now it feels like a monumentous task. So I decided that a little bit of tidying, a little bit of cleaning every day will help me keep on top of everything. Yes, I was lazy, and I ticked off some of those days having basically picked up my uniform from the floor and thrown it in the wash basket. But even little things like that have actually really helped me quite a lot. I noticed that my mental health improved, partly just because there was less on my plate. There was less for me to make myself feel guilty about. Even though looking around my room now, I can see I have washing that needs doing. I've been making my bed. That's been a huge thing. Wasn't aiming to learn, like, to develop the habit of making my bed. I wasn't aiming to develop the habit of making my bed, but it's something that's just happened. It's a little bit of tidying that I've started doing every morning, and it's actually really helped. When I get home from work, I don't feel like I'm walking into somewhere a bomb's hit. There are at least parts of the room which are always in order in a way. So I make my bed, and the sofa never has anything on it apart from the cushions unless I'm currently using it. And little things like that, little habits of little bits of tidying, is something that has built along the way, and it's made a huge difference. Okay. Last but not least was writing every day. Out of all four of my habits, right, let's get this done. Last but not least was writing every day. Out of all of these habits, this was the one that came the most naturally to me. So at the start of the month was when I started my blog, I started this YouTube channel, and I started streaming on Twitch. And so I was very fired up to write. I wanted to be producing content all the time, be talking about anything that was on my mind, where I hadn't written for so long, and especially with the isolation that that COVID-19 and the lockdowns and everything, the isolation that produced basically prevented me from communicating properly, from being able to just have a random chat with people and just go, hey, I read this thing, or hey, I came across this, it's really interesting, what do you think about it? And having that conversation, that lack of back and forth, or even just a lack of a vent in a way, that changed quite a lot for me. And so I had all this pent up stuff that I just wanted to get out. And one of the main things that writing did for me was give me a way of venting that. So the blog I ended up working on a lot. I was pretty much writing most days at least something towards a post, whether it was I chose a quote of the week and wrote a few notes about why I wanted to choose that one, or whether I was getting everything out of my system for my weekly roundup. I know that some people don't like reading that, it's a little bit too much for some people. I'm brutally honest in those about my physical health, what's going on with me. One of my more recent ones, I was actually discussing one of the reasons why I suddenly stopped posting so much. I stopped streaming for a week or two. I stopped working on YouTube videos. I almost stopped writing for my blog. The blog was the only thing that I actually kept up during that week or two. And the fact that my health did take quite a large downturn towards the end of the month, and it has been very tough. But that's something I will come on to in a little bit. I wanted to sort of apologise for not keeping up. I know that there's not many people watching, but the people watching, I know as a consumer of YouTube media myself, I love having new content to go through, even if it's just once a week, once every 2 weeks, having a regular schedule. That can be something that sets up for a good, like, sort of a conversation with these people who you otherwise wouldn't have met or wouldn't have gotten to know. And I want to foster that with other people if I can. So I do want to carry on doing all of this, and I know that it's going to take time. I'm going to have to build a habit of making the content just to reach out to people. Where was I? So I love the feeling of writing and being able to express myself through my writing. I have to admit that one of the sort of minor rules that I set myself at the start of this that I discussed in the first video was that I was not going to go 3 days without writing at least a paragraph or writing something towards my novel, whether it was a plan for how a chapter was going to go, or how a conversation might go, or something to do with world building. I wanted to make sure that I was keeping the ball rolling, and I wanted to make sure I was keeping the ball rolling and making sure that I was developing this world that I see in my head and keeping it alive in a way. But having the 3-day rule for that, along with how enthusiastic I was with the blog and my downturn in health, it just was not feasible to keep up. I ended up trying and then putting this horrible pressure on myself to get something done, that it took a lot of the joy out of the writing process for me. So putting that restriction on what I had to write rather than just nurturing the feeling of wanting to write soured the process quite a bit. I want to just kind of keep going with that where I can. Yes, it's on my bucket list to finish a novel, but it's not the be-all end-all. It's not my main goal right now. My main goal, as it has been for a while and will be for a long while yet, is to just be a better person and to hopefully get my health back on track. I'll get there eventually with this novel. I'm 5 chapters in and I'm loving it. I have an entire world in my head that I want to share with others, and this is the most developed this world or any other world I've tried creating has ever been, and it's more cohesive, and I really, really want to bring that and to share that with other people. It's just going to take time. So, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I had quite a lot of ups and downs this month. I, especially towards the end, really started to struggle with my mental health, especially because my physical health was getting worse. I'm sort of on an even kilter again now, but I suddenly started struggling quite a lot with the fact that I am taking anywhere between 6 and 20 tablets a day, and just that fact alone just started weighing on me and pulling me down. I know that it's temporary and that things will get better once my tests are all done, when they find out a definitive diagnosis of this is what's wrong, they can then move forward and hopefully give me a treatment or give me something that will make things better, just improve it even just a little, and it'll make a huge difference to my quality of life. One thing that I made sure to do was to try and see where my physical limits were and to stop before I hit them. That's something I've been really trying to do. It's one of the reasons why I was trying to develop this habit of stretching each evening before I go to bed and sort of checking in with myself, and that has actually really helped. It's one of the big things that's happened is I can tell because I'm constantly touching base with myself and having it so that I can sort of check in with myself. I know when I'm reaching that limit a lot more than I ever have before, and it's been so useful. But one thing I've noticed is that I do end up lacking self-compassion quite a lot. I found that if I missed a day, or even if I missed one lot of moisturizing, rather than like the whole day, I would feel so guilty that I had broken this chain of success and felt like the world was going to end because, well, that's a little bit too dramatic, but felt like I was going to have to give up on the habit and not actually continue, when actually I didn't need to give up, and I knew I wasn't going to give up, and that taking a day off is okay. Sometimes you're too tired to get out of bed and stretch and tidy and make sure that you've got all of the little things done before bed. Sometimes you've just got to crash. You've just got to go to sleep and accept that you'll just have to do it tomorrow. You can pick up where you left off tomorrow. And I've been working on it so hard with my therapist for 6 months and now on my own. I am working on this self-compassion, this acceptance that I might not be able to do everything, that I have to pull back on my goals and pull back on the amount of time and effort I'm putting in, because there is a point where it's not healthy, and I'm learning that point. But I still have to admit, breaking that chain hurt. As you could see earlier in the video, I had almost 2 weeks where I didn't miss a single time moisturizing or cleansing and things like that. And like, what I found really interesting was that I actually started tidying more as a little thing that was in my control that I felt I could do, in order to sort of combat that negative feeling of I can't do anything, I'm too broken, I'm too sick to do anything. I was sort of combating that by going, no, I'm going to put that smiley face on that calendar and get this bit done. Looking back over the month, I feel a lot better about how much I actually did. At the time, it felt like there were so many more crosses on those pages than there actually were, and it felt like to me, sometimes it felt like every other day I was missing something, or that I wasn't making any progress with these habits. But since I stopped tracking them about a week ago now, I have noticed that I'm still stretching, I'm still moisturizing and cleansing and toning. I'm not tidying as much, I will admit, but I've just been so tired recently that that's okay. My housemate is helping me where he can, and I'm not necessarily tidying, but I'm focusing on making sure I have the clothes that I need for the next few days, or making sure that the dishes are done, and those kinds of things, and doing the things that really matter, rather than this not necessarily arbitrary habit that I've been building, but it's just not as important as what I needed to focus on that day. And sort of having that mindset of, I'm going to get the minimum essentials done, and then I can work on these things if I can. Like, something I noticed over the last week or so is that without putting those crosses on that piece of paper, I don't have that trigger for the sort of guilt that comes across, but also I don't have the motivation that comes from building that chain. So that's something I might have to consider, is maybe trying to build different habits and build things into my evening routine or my morning routine, and just sort of try and do it, but only keep track of the thing that is really important to me at that time. So say if I wanted to make sure that I was tidying every single day, I would only track that one thing, because that's what I wanted to focus on. The other things that I've already built into my routine, they'll probably stick around, like washing my face, while I'm getting ready for bed and then stretching. That helps me wind down. It helps me get ready for bed in a way now. It's just part of my routine. And so I guess for those, it has been very successful. And writing, it's just something that comes naturally to me. I don't know if it's a habit that I'm building or whether it's just part of my routine and part of my life because that's what I love. But for now, I'm just going to keep going, keep picking things to try and add into my daily life and to adjust along the way because the small steps are what make us who we are. The small steps improve who we are over time. So I might not see much difference now, but if I can build in a couple of little things every month or every few weeks, adding a little thing in, then that'll make a huge difference a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and I'll be a much better person. So thank you guys for reaching the end of the video and for hopefully liking, subscribing, all of that stuff. And I hope to see you around. I can't guarantee I will be posting very often, but I will try. And thank you for coming along this journey with me. Goodbye.